Something just has to you can't keep doing this, and it's not cool to constantly make me the victim. And you get away with it.
Our job is to be consistent in the system, and so we're going to treat this case like any other case. Just happens to get more attention than others.
Only Fox 4 was there as former NFL quarterback and TCU star Trevone Boykin left the Tarrant County Jail after his arrest for...
No comment, no comment.
Still living your life and getting your fame. Here left with, this time, literally a broken face.
When you're the star athlete on the team, you tend to get stuff washed under the rug, right?
Text messages from Boykin suggesting she tell everyone she fell, or that say you had a fight with a female. We don't need another problem.
And of course, his football career is on the line. That's his main goal. Just my football career is on the line.
Some would call it a fall from grace. It was just 2015 when this picture of Boykin befriending a little girl with cerebral palsy before a TCU game went viral and endeared him to fans. But just weeks later, the string of arrests started when he was arrested for a bar fight in San Antonio.
Mansfield police asked a judge also to issue an emergency protective order in this case.
Trevone Boykin was one of the most electrifying quarterbacks to ever step on a college football campus. How good was he? Well, in my humble opinion, he was nothing short than a flat-out college superstar. The reason I say that is because he had over 10,000 passing yards and also over 2,000 rushing yards in his career. And oh yeah, can't forget to mention, he had 113 total touchdowns. Not too bad if you gotta ask me, not too bad at all. He also finished 4th in the Heisman voting, was named Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year, and nearly led TCU to their first ever college football playoff appearance. I could sit up here and hype up his game for hours and hours and hours, but like I said at the beginning, to make a long story short, he was electric. He was the definition of a dual threat quarterback you did not want to play on any given Saturday. His future was looking bright, it really was, up until he messed up. And when I say he messed up, I mean he messed up big time. He got arrested not once, not twice, but 3 times, and the 3rd time was very bad. I'll give you a hint, we're going to talk about it all throughout this video, but it has a little something to do with involving his girlfriend. I don't know why I said it has a little something, it has a lot to do with his girlfriend. Looking back on it now, not only is it a sad story, but it's a story that's hard to believe, because this is the same young man, this is the same guy that had that touching moment with a 7-year-old girl who was in a wheelchair. He really came off and appeared to seem like this great, humble, and genuine guy. If you were to tell me that this guy, this same guy you're looking at in this picture right here, would do the things he's done after this picture was taken, I wouldn't believe you. I wouldn't believe you. There's a lot of questions that people have about this situation, rightfully so, but however, there is one main question we're going to get to the bottom of in today's video. What really happened to Trevone Boykin? Story time, Matt in the building. What's going on? Hope y'all are having a blessed day, good night, good day whenever you're watching this. And man, oh man, it feels like we haven't done one of these story videos or what happened video in nearly a year. As most of you know, during football season, we don't post videos like this because we're talking about the ongoing and current topics. However, we are officially in the off season, so I figured, hey, why not? It's a good time to bring some of these videos back, because not only do I enjoy videos like these and doing a ton of research and whatnot, but I think you guys have always enjoyed them as well. We're going to get into the video in just a second, but I do want to say this. If you do enjoy videos like this, let me know in the comment section some more players, some more stories you want to see me cover. So drop your recommendations on some players or stories you want to see me cover, but check out this comment I saw in the last video. Caleb said, please, longer videos. Not that I'm complaining, just that I love to watch your videos so much. I want them to be longer, and I hear you, and all I'm going to say is about that, stay tuned. To Caleb and the other people out here that like the longer videos, trust me, I do too. I think you're going to enjoy not only this video, but the videos we got planned for the future. And anytime there is a short video, it's not because I want it to be short. It's more so of, 1, we're in the off season, and 2, there's not much going on. There's not much to talk about. That's really all I had to say. Hope you are looking forward to more storytime videos, because we're going to be bringing them. And as always, let me throw this in there because I sometimes forget to say it. If you're new to the channel or simply not subscribed, consider joining our community. It is 100% free. You can always unsub later, and it helps out the channel tremendously. It's a win-win. It doesn't cost anything, and it helps out the channel. All right, Matt, shut up. They don't care about that. Let's get on to the main topic, the main encore, the main reason you clicked onto this video. we got to talk about Mr. Trevone Boykin. Come on, man. You know it's not quite as simple as, okay, Trevone Boykin, he was a great college football player, then he fell off. It's not as simple as that. To get into his story and what really happened and go deep into detail, we got to throw it all the way back to where things really started. Because you got to remember, to every story, there's a backstory. Coming out of high school, Trevone wasn't this highly sought-after quarterback recruit. He was only regarded as a 3-star. Now, I don't want to take anything away from being a 3-star recruit. That's good, but it's not great. What's a good way to put this? He wasn't really on the national radar when it comes to recruiting. He was still a good football player, just not a lot of teams were going after him. I think you get the point. His dual threat ability, though, it was always on display from the jump. He rushed for over 1,300 yards as a junior and also had 1,600 passing yards. That's pretty solid, and if you thought that was good, his senior year, it was even better. These numbers are correct. His senior season, he had 1,799 rushing yards with 30 touchdowns, and he also had 2,930 passing yards. He had 30 touchdowns on the ground and 28 touchdowns through the air. What about that? To put this into a better perspective, most high school running backs in their career don't get near 1,800 career rushing yards, and he did that in one season as a quarterback. And what's even more impressive about this is he also had nearly 3,000 passing yards to go along with it. We could chop this up a bunch of different ways, but I think it's rather simple. The dude was a straight up athlete. It makes sense though because he also played track and field. When it came down to his recruitment process, he narrowed it down to 2 schools. You already know one of them, TCU, but the other one was UTEP. I think it's safe to say he made the right decision. He decided, hey, I'm going to TCU and we're going to see how it plays out. We're now getting into the point in our story where things are about to ramp up slowly. Not quickly, but slowly. A lot of people, when you hear the name Trevone Boykin, you have immediate flashbacks of this dude just going out there balling out every season, but he didn't even play his first year there. In 2011, when he got onto campus, he redshirted. He didn't even play that first year, and in the second year, he was supposed to be the backup the entire season. However, the starting quarterback, Casey Patchell, hope I'm saying that correctly, he got suspended. I don't know why, I just don't remember the Casey Patchell dude. Maybe I should, but I don't remember him playing for TCU whatsoever. It doesn't really matter, has no value to our story. Anyways, he gets suspended, Boykin takes over the starting job, and he started 9 games in that second year there. Remember, he redshirted, so it was his second year at TCU, but technically he was still a freshman. So in that 2012 season, starting 9 games at quarterback, he completed about 57% of his passes and had 15 touchdowns, which is good, but he also had a terrible 10 interceptions. I don't want to say he played bad, but he wasn't anywhere close to being good. He was average. Heading into his second season, which was 2013, the quarterback position, it opened back up, and he wound up splitting time with the former starter, Casey Patchell. And this just goes to show you that Trevone Boykin was a straight-up athlete. He started 6 games at quarterback that season, but he also started 1 game as a wide receiver. You want a fun fact? Check this out. He was the first TCU player in history to have a 200-yard passing, 100-yard rushing, and 100-yard receiving game in one season. Once again, he was a straight-up athlete that just so happened to play quarterback. When it was all said and done for that 2013 season, check out these stats because you're not going to see this anywhere else. He had 1,198 passing yards, 7 passing touchdowns, 313 rushing yards, 7 rushing touchdowns, and 204 receiving yards on 26 catches. I mean, where else are you ever going to see numbers like that? After that 2013 season, heading into 2014, he was named as a starting quarterback and he never looked back. I mean, the dude went out there and he lit it up. I'm going to show you his numbers right here. He completed 61% of his passes, had 3,900 passing yards with 33 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. Yeah, you could say the 10 interceptions, it is a bad look, but that's how this dude played. He had a fearless mindset, and around the same time, a player that reminded me a lot of him was Johnny Manziel. The definition of a gunslinger. If Trevone Boykin thought you was open, he's throwing the ball, and that's why he had a bunch of interceptions, nearly 10 interceptions every single season. To go along with those passing numbers, he also had 700 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns. He's a dual threat quarterback, what more can I say? He wound up leading TCU to a 12-1 record, and that was also the controversial season where most people thought TCU should have made the playoff, but they did not. I'm not here to get into all that, but I still remember it being controversial till this day. In the same season, he was first team All Big 12, was named Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year, and finished 4th in the Heisman voting. At this point in time, this is a very key part in our story. You got to pay attention. This was the pinnacle of Trevone Boykin's career. This was as high as it got. From here on out, things are about to get bad, and I mean bad really quickly. And it's why it's also cool to look back on situations like this and these stories, because at this time, I remember watching this season, I thought this dude had a chance of being an NFL starter one day. I'm not saying it's cool to see another man's downfall, but I think you get what I'm trying to say. It's really strange and weird to see how things play out 5-10 years later. Fast forward in time to 2023, this guy's completely irrelevant and he's screwed up his life, but We'll get into that in just a second. After that 2014 year, which yet again was his junior season, he decided to come back to college for his final and senior year. This being in 2015, and although yeah, it's cool he came back, there's not too much to say. I don't think he was worse in 2015, and you could also argue and say he was better, but it wasn't by much. His stats and numbers are almost a carbon copy paste from the year prior. He did increase his completion percentage from 61 to nearly 65, and he also had 3,600 passing yards. Key thing to note is you'll see right here, I'm going to highlight it for you. In 2014, he played in 13 games, but in 2015, only played in 11. We'll talk about that in just a second. Finished the year with, yet again, you see similar numbers, 31 touchdowns to exactly 10 INTs. Same thing when it comes to rushing. On the ground, he had 600 yards, and that's with 2 less games played. So looking at those numbers in 2014 and 2015, really good seasons. But, and I have a big but, remember, he missed 2 games. Why did he miss those games? Well, he missed 1 game for injury, but he missed the other game because he got arrested. Ladies and gentlemen, buckle your seatbelt, get you a snack because things are about to heat up quick. Does that even make sense? I don't know. We're just going to roll with it. On December 31st, 2015, 2 days prior to their bowl game, to be more specific, which was the Alamo Bowl, Trevone Boykin was arrested. I know what you're sitting there saying. Yo, Matt, what happened? Why did he get arrested? Well, long story short, he went to a bar, got into a scuffle, and he punched a police officer. Or my bad, they actually labeled it as quote-unquote striking a bicycle patrol officer. When I see bicycle patrol officer, I think of nothing more than a mall cop. Okay, let me get serious and lock back in. But anyways, it's still a serious matter. He was charged with assaulting a public servant, a third-degree felony, and posted a $5,000 bond. Here's what TCU's coach at the time, Gary Patterson, man, I remember him. He was a legend there. Here's what he had to say. Trevone Boykin and Preston Miller, he was also involved, have been suspended for Saturday's game due to violation of team rules. We are disappointed in their actions and apologize to the TCU Horned Frog Nation and the bowl and city and blah, 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 blah. Whoa. Hold on. Here's where things get a little bit, well, actually, let me change that. Not a little bit, but a lot of bit more interesting. Your boy Matt did a lot of digging and research on this topic, so here's some more details that I found rather interesting. I'm going to show you this in text because it'd be easier to follow along with me. At a Thursday morning news conference, San Antonio Police Chief William McManus confirmed reports that Boykin, 22 years old, and some teammates were in an establishment named Pat O'Brien's just before 2 a.m. This is when some patrons recognized the quarterback and began to trash talk. Boykin became upset and a scuffle ensued. In the melee, Boykin struck a bar employee. Before we go any farther, here's my question to Trevone Boykin. It's 2 days before a bowl game. You go to a local bar. What did you think was going to happen? You are a star football player. Yes, I'm going to label him as a star. He's coming off back-to-back insane seasons. He was Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year, finished 4th in Heisman voting, and you go to a bar and expect people not to trash talk? Like, what? This is part of being an athlete. So I have 2 answers to this. Number 1, if you can't handle the trash talking people saying stuff to you, you shouldn't have went to the bar. But number 2, if you can handle it and you want to go to the bar anyways, don't give in to it. Don't give them fuel to add to their fire. I've never understood this because as a former athlete myself, I've been in situations where student sections are booing me. Heck, I'll give you an example. I can't even believe this happened, but I had a case where student sections were throwing not only popcorn at me, but Skittles during a game in timeouts. And you want to know why people do stuff like this? Why these said people at this bar were talking trash to Trevone Boykin? They just want a reaction. So with that being said, to get them to stop doing this, and trust me, it works, you just don't give them a reaction because once they see it doesn't bother you, they move on with their day. For example, if somebody looked at Trevone Boykin and said, "Hey Trevone, you suck, we're going to beat you in 2 or 3 days," and Mr. Trevone Boykin, he just looked at the guy and laughed, nothing would have happened. Why? Because more than likely that guy would have laughed it off as well. But, and I have a big but at the same time, I myself, I've given into it. I've talked trash back. Why? Because you're not going to disrespect me 24/7. I'm going to say something back. So I do get that part. However, I only get that part if you're playing at a game or you're at practice. I don't get trying to stick up for yourself if you're at a bar or you're out in public. You're not going to win that battle. You're Trevone Boykin, dude. You're a flat out star. And yes, you are. You should have an ego about yourself. Why would you argue with a sheep when you're a lion? That's how I look at it, but let's continue on. Boykin and those with him were removed from the bar, but the fight continued. San Antonio bicycle police officers, I can't even believe that's a real thing. Bicycle police officers arrived at the scene and with the help of bar bouncers tried to stop the fight. According to an incident report provided by San Antonio PD, the suspect, quote unquote, was very aggressive and was being held back by the group that he was with. Members of his group stated they would get him back to the hotel they were staying at. Okay, sounds good, but after walking away, the suspect, whom police were told by bystanders was Boykin, charged officers. McManus said he was swinging and struck an officer in the face. Several officers then took Boykin to the ground. After officers threatened to use a stun gun on Boykin, he was arrested. In addition to the charge of assaulting a police officer, he faces charges of resisting arrest and public intoxication, according to police chief. McManus said, quote unquote, "We don't know if he was swinging at the officer or somebody behind him. In any event, the officer was struck in the face and suffered injuries." It was also stated that the officer Boykin hit suffered a swollen face and bruises. One of Trevone's teammates said, "He's still my brother. He's still our brother. We love him. We hope everything works out. I'm hurting from it. I won't lie. This is a kid with an extremely bright future, probably one of the best football players I've ever been with. He's a good person too. You just hate to see that happen. I just pray everything works out and he has another opportunity to get out there and do what he's great at." I think I speak for everybody when I say this. What a sad way to end a legendary, and I am going to say it was a legendary college football career. Who else can say they had over 10,000 passing yards and over 2,000 rushing yards? Not many. And maybe he's one of the only quarterbacks that can say that. I don't know. I haven't checked. But as good as his career was, he didn't even get to play in his last and final game, and that's got to hurt. And with this being his last and senior season, he had no choice but to declare for the NFL draft. And I think most of you know how stuff like this goes. If you have a crazy incident like that, or run in with the police right before the NFL draft, not a good look. I'm going to say this. I'm 100% confident that if this didn't happen and he played that bowl game and had a B+ game, he would have probably been a 4th or 5th round pick at minimum. But since he did have that run-in with police, he went undrafted, and I wish I could say I'm shocked, but I'm not. It's not like he was a generational talent to begin with there already being question marks, and then this happened, yeah, he was going to go undrafted. So yes, he did go undrafted, but even though he did go undrafted, that's not the end of his story because he got picked up as an undrafted free agent by the Seattle Seahawks. Unfortunately though, and it seems like time after time, Trevone Boykin just could not get out of his own way. This is one of these stories where I have no sympathy for him whatsoever because his career didn't end because of injuries. It ended because of dumb decisions that he continued to make time after time after time. I can have sympathy for a guy who messes up one time, maybe 2 times, and they change their life. But if you mess up more than 2 times, 3, 4, 5 times, no sympathy from me. On March 27th in 2017, while Boykin was still with the Seahawks, he was arrested again for the 2nd time. This time, I guess it wasn't as bad. It was for misdemeanor charges on possession of Mary Jane and public intoxication. You're starting to get the pattern of things. It seems like every time that Mr. Trevone Boykin goes out and has some drinks, bad things happen. And I know what some of you are sitting there saying, "Oh man, this one ain't a big deal. It's just public intoxication," but the reason I'm laughing is because it escalates a lot after that part. Well, yeah, it was public intoxication. That's part number 1. But 2, there was a car crash in which nobody really knows if he was driving or not, but he was in the car. In that car that crashed, it injured 8 people at a nightclub. Now, it was said technically he was the quote-unquote passenger, but a lot of people believe he was driving it and then hopped into the passenger seat and let I believe it was his girlfriend at the time, take the blame. Speaking of girlfriend, we're getting to her in just a second. Just wait for that part. This is the official police report I'm going to read to you and show you the text. At 2:10 a.m. local time, Shabrika Bailey, 25 years old, backed up at a high rate of speed, striking pedestrians on a sidewalk and then a wall of a sidebar in Dallas. The impact of the car with the building caused bottles of alcohol and ice cooler to fall inside sidebar, hitting and injuring the bartender. That's all there is to it to that, but I'm going to highlight this for you right here. Can you read that off to me? What does that say? 2:10 a.m. You would remember the last time that Trevone Boykin got into trouble. What time was that? 2 a.m. You see the pattern of things, and this is something that always sticks with me. Nick Saban said this. I don't think Nick Saban's just the greatest coach of all time. I think he's a great role model, great motivational speaker. Nick Saban said, nothing good happens after 12 a.m., and I believe that. Nothing good happens after 12 a.m. Do what you want with that information. This is just one of those great examples to back that claim and statement. And I get it, I really do. I'm not saying NFL athletes shouldn't be able to go to Topgolf, shouldn't have fun like normal people, but at the same time, you just gotta watch what you do, man. At this point in time in our story, it's not looking that great for Trevone Boykin, but here's where things completely just put a nail in the coffin, and it's like, all right, your career is officially over. About right after nearly a year from that incident in 2018 of March, this is the big incident that happened involving his girlfriend. And by the way, from the time frame of 2016 to 2018 when all these arrests are happening, he's still with the Seahawks. He's not really playing. He's bouncing up and forth from the practice squad to the team. So there's not too much to say for his football career. He's not some big time hot shot. He's not even on the team really. On March 27th in 2018, this was the official last day that Trevone Boykin was on the Seahawks and the last day he was in the NFL, because this is when his girlfriend accused him of domestic violence. If you've been watching the channel for a while now, you've seen where we've talked a lot about this, how women, they'll lie on all these football players, NBA players' names just because they want money or whatnot. They want to ruin the dude's career or for whatever reason. We see all the time where women, they lie on men's names. And one of my favorite stories, and we already made a video on this, I'll pop it up right here, is the Sean Oatman story. A woman just straight up lied on him and ruined his football career. But in this situation, I'm going to show you some of the video clips from the woman. And before I even show you these, I'm going to say it right now. I believe the woman. Why do I believe the woman? Number one, she seems genuine. I don't know if some of you can do this, but I can do this very easily. You can tell within 10 seconds from a woman talking or saying something whether she's actually being genuine or she's just saying it. I can tell this woman, she is hurt. I can hear it in her voice. But number two, and this is the main reason I believe it, she has evidence. Luckily enough for you, your boy Matt did a lot, and I mean a lot of digging and research. I have found the evidence, and yeah, Matt wrote a clip.
This is Shabrika Bailey, her jaw broken in 3 places, swollen and wired shut, so she may be difficult to understand.
It just can't keep going on. He just can't get away with this, period.
But she hopes you and her alleged attacker hear every word.
This is serious. This is domestic violence.
She says it happened late Tuesday night at Boykin's home in Mansfield, that the boyfriend she's known since high school became upset when she wouldn't let him look at a text on her phone.
And here's another reason why I kind of want to believe this. She had to have her jaw wired shut because of what he did. You got to think about this. Is there even an argument for Trevone Boykin in this situation? Continue on. Check this out.
She says he became nervous when hospital staff and security started asking questions.
From there, I heard that he fled the scene.
He left you at the hospital?
Left me at the hospital.
So he didn't stay with you?
Didn't stay.
And while in the hospital, she received these text messages she says are from Boykin, where he suggests she tell everyone it was an accident.
Okay, here we go. This is the best part about this. Matt, zoom in on this if you can. Trevone Boykin said, call me. Oh, by the way, this is when she's at the hospital. He said, he is in the white, by the way. She, the female who got, I guess you could say, attacked, she's in the blue. Trevone said, call me when you calm. And she said, when I'm calm, like being sarcastic. And he said, yeah. She said, when you broke my jaw. He said, no. She said, yes. How else? He said, you fail. And then she just straight up said, they saw you. And he said, who is they? Continuing along, she stated, bring me here. He said, what you trying to say? You told them I did it? She said, yeah, no, they assume. And then he stated, say you had a fight with a female. We don't need another problem. I didn't do it, you fell. I don't know why you scared to tell him what's up.
He's saying basically, since we've already been in the case, we don't need nothing else. And of course, his football career is on the line. That's his main goal. Just my football career is on the line.
What do you think's the right thing?
Something just has to you can't keep doing this, and it's not cool to constantly make me the victim. And you get away with it.
Man, I really feel bad for the female. And also, I'm going to say this while I'm thinking about it. Another reason I tend to believe the female, yet again, it seems like I have 4 or 5 different reasons, is because it's already been proven that Trevone Boykin has anger problems. Remember, the first time he got arrested was 2 days before the bowl game because some random dude at a bar was talking trash to him and he hit him. You know what I like to call this, ladies and gentlemen? Pattern recognition. If this right here with the girl was the first accusation to Mr. Trevone Boykin, I may give him the benefit of the doubt and say, hey, I don't know. But you got to think about this. This is his 3rd time being arrested. He's continued to have these problems over and over and over. And also, there's text messages, which is enough evidence for me, and the girl's jaw had to be wired shut because you broke it. And going back to this as to why it's so weird to me, remember, I'm going to show you this picture yet again. Trevone Boykin, from everybody, his teammates, his coaches, people around him, they've always said great things about him. He's a good guy. He's a real genuine guy. He's a humble guy. And even up to this point with him being arrested, even his neighbors was like, yeah, I'm surprised by this. He seemed like a good dude.
These people have presented themselves as being pretty decent people, good neighbors to have.
That's what's so weird about this. However, the older I've gotten, the more I've learned that people that do stuff like this, I'm not accusing him of anything, but people that do stuff like this, they're good at hiding it. Ultimately, he was charged with this, and he was put in jail only a couple months later.
Boykin, who also played for the Seattle Seahawks, also pleaded guilty to 2 misdemeanor theft charges. For that, he was sentenced to 180 days in the Tarrant County Jail.
But here's where things continue to get even more, I guess you'd say, bizarre with this situation. More charges were put on him. What were those charges, you may ask? Well, one of them was a criminal charge because he failed to pay for a hotel room. And another one, and this is just low down, is apparently he agreed to sign some autographs for TCU fans and they were going to pay him for it. Well, he took the money, but he never gave them the merchandise and the jerseys and whatnot. I ain't gonna lie to y'all, that's the definition of being an a-hole. Basically, stealing money from your fans, it doesn't get any worse than that. With all these charges against him, officially, on February 27th in 2020, Trevone Boykin was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Considering how bad it looked with all the evidence they had against him, I'm gonna say he got off light here. Maybe I could be wrong on that. 3 years seems light for what he did and all the other minor stuff that they had pinned against him. Hold on, it doesn't end there though, because guess what? He was sentenced to prison for 3 years, and those 3 years are now up. As to when I'm speaking and filming this video, he has recently just got out of jail. And he has wasted no time whatsoever because he has officially signed with a Mexican football team in some Mexican football league. He's definitely got his work cut out for him though, because his football team last year went 0-6. Doing some more research and digging, I believe, I could be wrong with this, but I'm about 98% sure I'm right, he got out early around October. And as to where it stands today, he's still pursuing his football career. I'm wishing him the best of luck, and I hope he's turning his life around for the better. I'm not perfect, you're not perfect, nobody is. We can only hope but to learn from our mistakes. Obviously, it goes without being said, he has no shot whatsoever of returning to the NFL, but that doesn't mean he can't turn his life around. Our story with Trevone Boykin isn't over quite just yet though, because recently he did an interview and he talked about a lot of the things that we spoke on in this video. I'm going to show you some of these clips because I think they give you a different perspective than maybe if I wouldn't have showed you these clips at the end of the video. In this first clip I'm going to show you, he talks about how, hey, if you're a star athlete, sometimes you can get away with things.
Would you say that football, and because of your skill, that people made exceptions for you, or I'm going to use this word that people use, that they coddled you, that they took care of you, maybe when you needed some tougher love at times?
Right. I would say yes, and that would go for anybody, right?
Oh yeah. I'm not saying it's just you.
Right. When you're the star athlete on the team, you tend to get stuff washed under the rug, right?
The one thing I'm going to say about him that immediately catches my attention is, number one, I like seeing men, I don't care who you are, I like seeing you dress that way because it looks more presentable. It just looks great to always be one of the best dressed men in the room. And number two, he does sound mature. He does sound like a great guy. And I also like the honesty, how he's like, yeah, you can get away with things, but let me show you this next clip where he talks about what happened during, or not during, but before the Alamo Bowl where he got suspended for the fight.
I want to skip ahead. So you get to TCU, have all the success.
Right.
As we said, you were the big man on campus. Right. You go to the Alamo Bowl.
Right.
And then you made a bad decision.
Exactly.
Walk us through that night before the game and what you were thinking.
Like I said, just being young, honestly. Not really wanting to dwell too much on it, but I was in a place where I shouldn't have been, point blank period. I mean, I knew it was wrong. Can't change it, but one thing I can do is admit that I was wrong and just try to continue to move forward. But I've learned so much, and it's sticking with me, and it's stuck with me.
Yet again, another mature response, and I'm kind of looking at it from his same standpoint. What is he supposed to say? The only thing to say about that in any situation where you mess up is, hey, I messed up. I can only help but learn from it. That's always a tough question to answer because you don't want to say too much because it is what it is. You messed up. We'll say this, though, yet again, I respect him tremendously for owning up to it because most people don't. I'm sure you guys know somebody like this. They will always play the victim role their entire life, even if they're not the victim. Continuing along here in this next clip, here's where things get juicy. He talks about the incident with his girlfriend.
Then you had another issue.
Right.
And that issue cost you your job.
Right.
I'm going to say this. How have you tried to make amends for that mistake?
It's hard. This university I've given everything to. I would love to sit there and apologize to them and just tell them how sorry I am for what I've done to leave whatever I did to hurt feelings or to disappoint or whatever it was. One thing I can say is it didn't hurt anybody more than it hurt me though, right? Because each and every day I was the one putting in work out there on that field each and every day with my teammates, not excluding them, but I was out there every day. And so it didn't hurt anybody more than what it hurt Trey. And so when I try to get people to realize that, like, look, I'm going to continue to push forward each and every day. And
gotta be honest, I don't really like how he ended that off. He was heading in the right direction, but then he made that subject about himself, and I disagree. No, it definitely didn't hurt you worse than it hurt the female. He got charged and accused for it. He served time for it. So it's not if he did this. He did it. To Trevone Boykin, I'm not trying to say that I don't believe you, that it didn't hurt you, because I do believe it did hurt you. I 100% believe you from that standpoint. However, the part I don't like in that answer is you made this situation about yourself. He's trying to say, hey, although, yeah, it upset a lot of people, it didn't upset anybody more than myself. Does the way he answered the question bother me? Absolutely not, because I get where he's coming from. He's got a lot to say. He's got a lot to vent about. He's got a lot to talk about, but I can also understand why a lot of people wouldn't be too fond of that response. Whenever I do these videos and cover topics, I don't really look at them as to how I would perceive them, because most people, they get way more offended than me. I am curious though, let me know about that. Are some of you offended by the way he answered the last part of it, or do you not think it's a big deal? Me personally, it doesn't bother me. I don't think it's a big deal. I see where he was trying to go.
You went away for a little while.
Yeah. 20, 30, 32 months. 32
What was that like?
Tough, right? Being away from my family, having a daughter, just talking to her on the phone, like, man, I'm talking about, it was days where I went crazy. It was days where it was tough. I mean, I don't know if you know, but I lost my mom and dad.
I did.
Right.
I did
so I had some dark days. Mm-hmm. And so with me actually being here, even having this conversation, I feel like I'm moving in the right direction.
I know you are.
I'm going to stop it right there real quick, and I got to say it. Trevone Boykin, he is well-spoken. However, and I'm sure your mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, your brother, you've seen it online somewhere. Somebody somewhere has told you this, or you've seen it. Actions speak louder than words. What he's saying, it sounds good, and I'm happy for him. It seems like everything's going great, but I got to see it. And I do want to say this before I forget. Sure, he might have messed up, not once, not twice, but 3 or 4 times. He messed up a lot of times. But I will say this, I'm willing to give him another chance. You know why? Because I'm not perfect myself. I'm not going to sit up here and lie to y'all. I'm skeptical saying that because looking at his history, it's not that good. The one thing I like about him, though, and the one reason I'm not going to write him off just quite yet, not even when it comes to a football standpoint, but just a life standpoint, his football career is completely over. Sure, he may play here and there, but he's not getting to the league. He's not going to make a ton of money from it. When it comes to a life standpoint, the reason I haven't given up is because I've went to his Instagram, I've watched a ton of interviews. He's in the right place of mind. And that is the one thing I always look for in a story or situation like this. If somebody's not in the right place of mind, then no, I'm writing them off. Because if you can't control your brain, if you can't act right off the field, then it's over.
That's why I said it at the very beginning. I could see it in your face, man, that you're moving in the right direction. There had to be days when you're there for those 32 months where you sat there and you said, I was playing in the NFL.
Yeah.
I was a starting quarterback in the NFL. I was leading a team to a Peach Bowl, a Chick-fil-A Bowl, whatever we called it at the time. And now I'm sitting here.
Right. Reality check.
What is...
Man, just think about that, guys. You want to talk about going from the highest of highs to lowest of lows? This guy, Trevone Boykin, finished 4th in the Heisman voting, was Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year, was one of the best quarterbacks in the country, nearly made the playoff, and yet, a couple years later, he's sitting in jail. That's straight up crazy. We talk about the fall off that Johnny Manziel had. Well, he was never locked up for a couple of years. He still has his freedom. This guy went from being star quarterback, could get away with anything. I mean, he had everything in the world. He had the world in his hands, and then a couple years later, he's in I don't know how big a jail cell is. What is it, like a 8x8 cubicle? Unreal.
Right. I mean, it really let me know, right, that invincibility you think you have because of what you do on the field. Right. You think that everything can be swept under the rug, and that's not necessarily the case. But and sometimes it's hard. I'm sorry, unless you done been there, it's hard not to let it get to you as much unless you keep steady people around you with the stability that you got. But it's hard, man. But I like I said, I've learned a lot, bro. Like,
that's another thing that people don't get, because I see all these people, they're overweight, eating cheesy puffs on the couch, watching all these guys play. Meanwhile, they never played a sport in their life. They're going, oh, I would never let the fame get to me. I would stay humble. Yeah, okay, chump. To give you my perspective on this, I can somewhat relate to Trevone Boykin, not on the same level and scale, but to a certain extent. I've been in situations where I have 30-point games, and the next thing you know, you go home later that night, you got all these girls you've never heard of hitting you up, everybody's hyping you up, you're the big man on campus. It happens. That's not something you just see in movies. Trust me, I've experienced it to a certain extent and degree. And I'll tell y'all straight up, I'm not going to say it's hard to to stay humble because I don't believe that. What's a good way to put this? I'm going to say you definitely start to feel yourself. I mean, could you imagine, let's say you're in high school, you have a football game, and this is on a small scale where you throw for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. You go home later that night, you've got 80 girls DMing you. Yeah, it's going to inflate your ego just a little bit. So I understand where he's coming from with that standpoint. That's all I'm going to show you from the interview. It's really, really long. I watched all of it, and I'm going to sum it up for you real quick. I'll actually leave a link to it if you want to check out the entire interview down below in the description, but I'll sum it up for you right here. Long story short, he said he wants to be a guy who now, when he comes into the room, he just brightens up everybody's day. And another thing I respect him for is, although, yeah, maybe his playing days are coming to an end, he started up having his own camps and he's teaching the younger generation. He talked about that in the interview, and I think that's one of the best things you can do. Teach others to play the sport you also loved at one point. And checking out his Instagram for myself, there's not too much to say besides it seems like I said before, I'm going to say it again, he's in a good place of mind. He's in a good place of mind. Matt, that doesn't make sense, but y'all get what I'm trying to say. He's in a good state of mind. That's a better way to put it. There's many more things I could say, but I'm going to ask you guys, we're going to end this video off with a question. Do you forgive Trevone Boykin or do you not? I hope you guys enjoyed this one because I definitely enjoyed making it. If you want to see more, it's simple. Subscribe, hit that like button, do all that nice stuff, and let me know your thoughts down below. But, right, 1 million!